All right, so now we're ready to dive into building Flutter applications. But before we do that, I think it's important for us to really understand what is a Flutter application. It's some sort of an overview of the anatomy of a Flutter application. Now, again, if you're coming from Android development, then this may be a little bit out of ordinary because in Android development, we are used to creating our views using XML. But with Flutter, everything is widget based. But before I lose you here, let's take a quick look of the anatomy. When we have an application, this would be, for instance, a screen of that application, right? So inside we'll have a view, which we call a widget. So everything in Flutter is in a widget, and a text would be another type of widget. So text will allow us to write text onto the screen, right? And then we would have, for instance, buttons, containers. Containers are widgets that allow us to actually add other items inside of them, such as rows, columns, and so forth. This is essentially the basic anatomy of the user interface, at least of a Flutter application. And of course, we'll learn more about this as we dive into building Flutter applications. Now, the basic widgets, and widgets. Now, there's a few basic ones, be text, rows, columns, stack. So what a stack is essentially is that allows us to put other items on top of them, right? We can arrange those items inside of stack vertically and horizontally and so forth. So stacks are really important when we start putting together user interfaces for our applications. Everything in Flutter is a widget, as you will see. Then we will have a main container, which then can contain everything that we just discussed, other widgets such as text, rows, columns, stacks, and so forth. And the other thing for us to really wrap our head around our basic widgets and the way things are laid out is think of everything as a tree-like hierarchy, right? So at the top we'll have a root, could be in this case a container, and then inside of this container we'll have a text or row, or we can just go ahead and create a stack and then put all of the rows and text and columns inside of that stack, or vice versa. But everything comes from the root. We have to have a main view, or as we call a main container or widget. So to summarize, everything in Flutter is a widget, and everything is an object, and everything is a library. Okay, so text, rows, columns, stacks, everything. All of these are objects as well as widgets. And so going back to the idea of an Android developer coming into learning Dart and Flutter, you will see the difference here is that we don't use XML to create user interfaces. We use widgets, everything in code. Okay, so that can be something a little bit different, something to get used to. But you will see once we get going here that it's not as bad as it may sound. In fact, you will see that it's very liberating, straightforward, and really fun to work with. Perfect. So I will see you in the next video.